Welcome everybody, my name is Anthony James, founder and CEO of LinuxAcademy.com and CloudAssessments.com, and today I'm joined by Christian Rojas, who has received all 5 AWS certifications. During that process, was able to get a new job and has been an active member of Linux Academy for quite a while now. And so we're here to talk about some of his experiences with the certification, maybe some tips and tricks, and really understanding his journey. And so Christian, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and just a quick introduction?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to share my story and to hopefully help you who are watching specifically. So, I actually come from the music industry. So I started in cloud about 18 months ago. I guess the short story of it is I started as a morning radio show producer in Miami 10 years ago. That evolved into professionally DJing, starting my own company, which was a music promotions company. And so I've worn 4 or 5 different hats. I currently live in New York now. And about a couple years ago, the company that I was running got acquired, essentially. And the new service was using AWS. They wanted to use AWS. And so I was helping them transition and everything. And what ended up happening was I fell in love with AWS versus running a server farm on a monolith. You know, I knew what we were doing before in my old company, but I had someone who was doing the support for that. So when I joined this new startup, AWS clicked for me. Intelligence is distilled in simplicity, basically, right? So AWS, they have 1 million people working for them, but that product wouldn't be successful if it wasn't easy to use, whether it's the management console, whether it's a CLI, right? So when I dived in, it was an easy starter kit. And ever since then, I got obsessed. And I was looking to transition careers. And so at that point, I didn't know whether or not I wanted to focus my entire energy on cloud or to be a front-end developer. Because I did like coding. I liked the JavaScript, HTML, C, CSS. And I called my dad and I told him, I'm thinking about becoming a developer. I can probably join Upwork, do freelance that way and get a lot of jobs. And he was like, well, you don't have that much experience doing any of this. Can you get certified in that? And I was like, no, you can't. And so I started looking for other certifications. I started looking for what are the most popular certifications. And AWS came up. Constant. Every page. Tom's IT Pro, I think, is the site. There's another. There's all these resources. And so I was like, first, cloud is here, and we're not even close to the mountaintop. So the industry is still relatively new. Number 2, these certifications were bringing you 6-figure salaries. And so for me, it was a no-brainer. And since I already had a little bit of exposure, I just started Googling cloud courses. And I found a couple, and I stumbled onto Linux Academy. A couple months into me learning, reading white papers and whatnot, I got my professional certifications with you guys. I got my SysOps associate certification with you guys. I learned Puppet. I learned Jenkins. More importantly, I learned Linux to be able to kind of support and to be able to support a job, to get a real world job, like an enterprise job. You needed to know Linux. So that right there is pretty much where I'm at today. Now I'm working for an SAP on AWS migration firm. So what does that mean? That's basically this consulting firm. They're based out of the UK. They're called Lemongrass. If you look them up on AWS, you'll see their featured partner. There's a couple of videos about them and the work that they do. That's my position now. That's what I'm working at now.
No, that is a great story. I appreciate you sharing. And one question I have on that, let's go back 18 months ago. You really haven't had any IT experience, probably, or no cloud experience. You were in the music industry.
I had no cloud experience. I could blend 2 records together. If you put it in, that's what I had. That was it. At that point, I was afraid to touch a command line. Every time I asked a station to something, it took me 30 minutes just to figure out the commands.
That's amazing. Let's think about that. For any students listening, you started 18 months ago. How long ago was it that you got your job in cloud?
So I started working specifically in cloud, like a proper cloud so we're December 14th, I believe, today. So it was 2 months ago. Was my first day.
That's awesome. So if we think about that, how long does it take to go to college? How much does it cost to go to college? 18 months ago, you decided to learn cloud architectures, IT architectures. And how much did that cost you? Let's talk about that.
Well, I was about to say, how much do colleges cost? $25 a month, $29 a month, right? Whatever the going rate right now is for Linux Academy. I was telling you before in the pre-interview that I actually paid for a yearly subscription recently, just out of I felt obligated to, because of the fact that I was able to land the jobs that these certificates bring, the type of salary that these types of certificates bring you. So first, thank you for that, and to the whole crew over there. When I had that phone call with my dad, it was November of 2015, right? So I was dabbling in it, and then when I really made the decision to go full on, it was about a year ago, right?
So it was about 12 months, really. Well, actually, and then 2 months ago you had your job, so 10 months, learning cloud, getting all 5 certifications, and you have a job.
Right. And I want to stress that my intention here is not to toot my own horn. I guess for me, it's important to understand that the only reason why I was able to achieve those 5 certifications, it was because I was just consistent. It wasn't anything special. Like I said before, the fact that AWS, yes, they're complicated technologies, but they're not impossible. And I would always remind myself, even when I didn't understand something, it was like another human being created this. It wasn't done by AI. Right. And so that helped me along while just the learning started to get a little tougher.
Really, kind of success sometimes isn't a magical formula. It's just persistence and consistency. So let's talk about some of your study habits. You got all 5 certifications. What was your study habits? How did you push through? Sometimes when you're looking at daunting things, getting started, going through lots of school, doing lots of training, life gets in the way. How did you do it? Can you tell us that?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I dedicated, whether it's a Saturday and Sunday all day or, a few hours during the day, during the week, I made sure to either review what I had already studied or to go on to watch new videos, new lessons. One thing I would say about the lessons, though, that really helped me out, especially studying for the certifications on Linux Academy, was the fact that I didn't take any notes on what was already on the slides, but I did take notes on what was said when the slides were being explained. I don't know if that makes any sense. But,
well, it does. Like, you have the notes, but the thing is slides, which we try to do things hands-on, right? And then you have slides, those are talking points where we have course authors who are speaking from actual experience, right? You don't want to just read from a transcript the whole time. And so, you using those notes or those flashcards or so on and so forth makes total sense. I was just articulating that off of there. So keep going.
Yeah, and I've used previous resources, and they're creating courses just off of white papers. And the difference is with LA, it's and I know somebody says it in one of the trainings, is we're here to teach you how to be an engineer who happens to pass the certification, right? And so just the course alone prepared me for all the interviews that I was doing, right, concerning AWS.
That's the difference between getting a certification and getting qualified, right? Certifications will get you in that job interview. And we've seen it over and over and over again, even ourselves, is you can answer questions that because they're just related to the certification. But when it comes to performing it in real environments, looking at the architecture, looking at a problem and designing a solution, that requires hands-on experience, actual understanding of the technology that you're doing.
Right.
And it looks like you took that seriously, because obviously it takes longer to get a certification because that's a little bit more. If you look at the courses, they're a little bit longer because it goes into that depth, but it paid off for you is what we're hearing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It paid off 100%. And the fact that it took me a year, it might take someone 2 years, but the time, I don't think the time matters. It's more about understanding the material, and everybody's different. So if it takes you a little longer or even quicker to understand the material, like I said, the importance is just being able to go in, launch up an instance, create a VPC, understand routing, understand your route tables. These type of things I use every day. I was actually, before this call, setting up an environment for a client we had. It's important to understand the material.
So that's fantastic. There's a few things I want to get into, maybe which certification you pick first and why. But before we do that, my question is this. You have your job. You got your 5 certifications. what are you going to continue doing? What's your message for those who already have that might be saying, I got a full-time job, I'd like to get certified, but I can't? What might be your strategy around doing that and dedicating some time towards it?
Just any certification in general you're talking about?
Any certification in general.
I'm going to go back to the consistency. Consistency, you're going to get frustrated. Let me tell you that. Or at least I did. I can only tell what my experience is. The frustration exists. Have the goal established, meaning I'm going to get this SA associate certification. I have a full-time job. I am going to get it. So every time I study for this, I know that I'm that much closer. Instead of the opposite of thinking about it like, oh my God, I got so much more to go and I only did 20 minutes today, right? I think mindset is huge. I failed the first time I took the SA associate. So it wasn't like I passed all these exams with flying colors. For me, that was a huge ego blow. And so you may fail. You may fail one of these exams, but just understand, always keep in mind what these exams or what these certifications are going to mean for you in your career. I think that's what kept me going, and a support system. I've had people around me who even when I did fail, I was broken. They're like, oh yeah, really? Oh, let's take it again. Not a big deal, right? If you're active in the forums in Linux Academy, you'll see that from the actual community members, like the subscribers, or especially the course instructors and whatnot. If you have any questions or stuff like that, like the forums have been really helpful for me as far as support.
So, let's talk about that failure for a second, because when we look at it, whenever anybody reports failing, the thing is people fail, right? I've failed certifications. This happens. And most of the time, it's the first time anybody has ever taken a certification exam, and just a kind of understanding, it seems easy. I'm just going to go through a course real quick. I'm just going to do it, but not going to really focus on trying to understand it. I listen to it, that should be enough, right? And the thing is genuinely trying to understand those concepts. And if you have questions, also asking the instructor questions. But let's say, you're excited for that. You talked about how you were really down, right? In any kind of moment, there's that large failure, almost kind of soul crushing. And when you get that, though, that's the first step to success, right? Like that's, failing a certification just tells you your opportunity for improvement. And with a little bit of courage and humility to look at it that way, you can turn around, have 5 certifications, and an awesome job doing something you love. So, that's a great testimonial, Christian.
It's not linear. This stuff is not, you're not going to go like this. This thing, there's
ups and downs.
And let me tell you, those troughs, those downs, they can be pretty hard, right? And because you said something earlier before that I wanted to echo, is that how were you able to do this with life, having just life in general to deal with, right? That was a struggle for me as well, is trying to manage all that. And it wasn't about even finding time to study. It was about neglecting other people and just really trying to navigate relationships, navigate bills, because at this point, and I'm going to be totally frank, throughout this year, I wasn't making, I guess, the same amount of money I was used to. And because I took this leap of faith to study for these certifications, I cut out revenue streams for myself, right? And so, that stress of just, not knowing if I'm going to have enough to pay my bills, that was real for me too. So, if you're watching and you're in that, and that's where you're at, it power through, it gets better. It absolutely gets better.
Those are great words of encouragement, Christian. I appreciate you being open and sharing that, because there's a lot of people that are going to be watching this that are going to directly relate. And so that's just great to be able to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about a few tips and tricks. Which certifications did you start first with? And do you have any tips for taking the exam?
I started with the Solutions Architect Associate, which is I recommend everybody to do that, because it gives you a great overview of the ecosystem, right? If you're walking in and your intention is to get a job in this, you really need to know the ecosystem. Then you can really drill down a lot easier in where you want to focus your energy to, because at least you know where your options are. And then after that, I did the developer exam. I found the developer exam was just, with the exception of a few questions, like I would say 90% similar to the associate solutions architect associate. And so I knocked those two out within a couple weeks of each other. Then I took a break, and I took a few months to learn other technologies like Linux and stuff like that. And then I went to SysOps. I did SysOps, so I got my 3 associates, and after that, I powered through to the professional exams. Because my experience is in a small startup, it wasn't enterprise, and so for me, I wanted my certifications to show that I can do this. You know, I can speak with you about your problems and help solve them. So that's why I went the professional route so fast. It was more out of desperation, because I was going through the interview process. And like you said, you know, you get the associate, or you go through a course and you think you know it, and then you get interviewed, and you're just like right the whole time. And so that was my journey. So I did, actually, it's interesting. A lot of people say to do the solutions architect professional first and then do the DevOps engineer. I did the opposite. The DevOps engineer pro focused a lot on Elastic Beanstalk,
deployment type strategies.
All that stuff, right? Like, CloudFormation, right? And I love the idea that you're able to drill down on like 3 or 4 technologies and not have to know the full scope that is the professional exam, because the professional exams are 10 times harder than the associates.
Yeah, and I would say that CSA Pro is probably the single hardest one.
Absolutely. And so I would, at least going into this the CSA Pro, I felt comfortable with OpsWorks, with CloudFormation, with Elastic Beanstalk. So I knew at the very least I could just review my notes from the other exam. But yeah, and as far as taking the exams themselves, take the practice exams. Take them. Do not think that the public questions that are on the forum or that are provided in like the exam, whatever AWS provides, the documentation for the exams, like that's not enough. Take the Linux Academy practice exams. They're even more in depth than any other exams I've seen in the WizLab stuff and all that other stuff. You guys have done a great job as far as getting us ready to take those exams. So
thanks for saying that. It's super humbling. I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I was. You know, they say don't take any more tests or don't quiz yourself before the exam. But I was on the subway, just on my cell phone.
They say that? I for sure review before I go into stuff.
I don't know where I got it, but they're like, go in with a clear mind and you'll be okay. And I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna keep on answering these questions.
In my thoughts, you kind of, you want to be well rested. You know, I like to go kind of mid-morning, so I'm not hungry in lunch or getting tired in the afternoon. You know, it's kind of there, you're awake, but for me, I want to get my mind and the thought process of that technology, of that end goal. So when I go into it, when I see those things, I'm thinking like that. So maybe I'm just completely, it sounds like you and I are the same page though.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I just got bad advice.
I don't know if did you get that from us? I taught the CSA exam.
I'm not going to, I don't remember who. I know it's not from you guys, but I don't want to put them on blast.
That's amazing, Christian.
Yeah, and just a little cool part now that they have this, the AWS has taken over their training, the certification. I don't know, for those who don't know, about a year ago, it was they didn't have a portal to sign into your training, to sign up for your certifications through AWS. You had to do it through a third-party company. Yeah. And the thing is now, because AWS is taking it over, the cool part is if you pass an exam, they give you credit for a free practice exam for another certification.
Oh, that's a great tip. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's funny. When I signed in, I had already achieved the 3 associates. So when I signed in to sign up for my practice exam, I saw that I had 3 credits for practice exams from AWS.
Wow.
Because at that they had switched it over. So whoever's watching, please take advantage of that if you have a certification.
So Christian, we're getting ready to wrap up here, and I'm just going to ask you 2 questions, and I'll let you do it, and then we'll wrap up. What's next for you, and are there any final tips that you want to provide?
Always learning. That's part of the culture, right? I mean, if you're watching this video, you're curious. So that's I think that's 90% of it. I'm enjoying my experience at work, to be honest. I'm diving deep into it. Where I'm at, Lemongrass, they're actually they're expanding from the UK into the US, and so there's all these opportunities to apply what I've learned, and to, I think what goes unsaid a lot is once you do get a job in this, you're working with really smart people. You're working with other people that have tons of experience, in maybe one technology here and another technology there, right? And so I'm just soaking it all in. Eventually, I plan on diving a little bit more into containers, but at this point, I'm just really enjoying the work that I'm doing at Lemongrass and just growing internally.
That's fantastic, Christian. Everybody, great story from Christian. I'm sure he'd be happy. Do you have a Twitter or anything like that you would like to provide?
The C Rojas CSA is my Twitter. I just started it, so it's a brand new Twitter. It's CROJASCSA. My DMs are wide open, so I am here for whoever has questions, whoever just wants to kind of talk a little bit more about some of the things that we spoke about here. I am an open book. This is, it's like resources like Linux Academy and blogs and these blogs that put up all this like information for you. Even the Linux Academy blog for free, right? And like they share it. I wouldn't be here because of these types of communities. Right. And so this is, I guess, my way here to give back. If you guys want to reach out to me, C Rojas CSA at Twitter.
That's very generous of you, Christian. And also, if you don't tweet, I think you can probably find him in the Linux Academy community if you just address him on there. Great story. For those listening, let's sum this up real quick. 18 months ago, he was in the music industry, decided to start learning cloud 12 months ago. Spent about 10 months of that, got all 5 certifications, and now has a new job in cloud. And that's a wonderful testimonial, Christian. I appreciate you taking the time to join us on this quick student interview.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me, and thanks for everything.
Thank you.